All right, good morning, everybody. I hope everyone enjoyed themselves yesterday and are looking forward to tonight so you can all win a major award. It'd be kind of really big deals. It's a major award. But welcome to the Friday session. This morning we're going to talk with Hailey. She is the Director of Operations for Lasting Joy Brewing. She joined their team 6 months after they opened. She currently runs their daily operations, oversees the tap room, and is opening their new on-site kitchen, as well as heading up their programming and special events business. So she's going to basically tell you how to make your tap room awesome, if you don't already know. Welcome, Hailey.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming to the breakout session. So I'm going to talk about private events at the farm brewery license, but I think that definitely can take points away just about how to diversify your tap room, and maybe that doesn't mean private events for you. Maybe it's just kind of looking at the process that we took at Lasting Joy, evaluating what we thought would be a great way to expand our offerings, and hopefully you can take those points away too if maybe private events isn't the right focus for you. And I'm sure a lot of us here are farm brewery licensed, but same kind of concept if you're not either. Please feel free to jump in with questions along the way. It doesn't need to be super formal. Happy to answer questions as we go. So a little bit more about me. I'm a graduate of the Culinary Institute in Hyde Park. After that, I went and got my bachelor's degree in winemaking, grape growing, worked in high-end wine for about 6 years, did some event planning in that time, did back of house, front of house jobs in restaurants, and then I transitioned into the brewing industry at Lasting Joy in 2022. I like to make a little point about my background because I think that what we do really great at Lasting Joy is bring in hospitality to the tap room, and a big focus on that and creating a super welcoming space and being able to offer this higher end level of hospitality that maybe folks aren't necessarily expecting when they go to a tap room. I think the reality is that you can't just be a brewery selling beer anymore. I think that's a thing that we've been hearing the last couple of years at the Craft Brewers Conference, hearing from your colleagues, hearing folks talk about it this week while we've been here. And I think that it's been pretty true. Now we're seeing that, like she was saying this morning at the keynote, it's not that we have less beer drinkers, it's just that people want more from the experience that you have to offer. And I think that you already have a space that you're selling beer out of, so you might as well find other ways to utilize that space, maybe during hours that you're not normally open, or a way to expand on those offerings. So we started doing private events about 6 months into the opening of Lasting Joy. When I joined the team, it was something that I reevaluated. I was brought in because of my background in events, and it made it really easy with our super beautiful space to kind of jump off from there. So year one, we did about $50,000 in events business, and that kind of ranged from weddings, tiny little birthday party rentals, buyouts, partial. We just have one big open space, and then our outdoor space, we don't have any other private rooms. So you're either doing a full property buyout, you're just renting the patio, you're just renting half the tap room, or there's little areas of groups of tables that you can rent within the space. We don't do any reservations. We're first come, first serve for seating, and if you wanted to ensure that you're going to have a space, you would pay a rental fee to reserve one of those spaces. We just opened up our kitchen about 2 weeks ago. We're popping up right now. With that transition, we'll be switching to a model that's a food and beverage minimum spend. Before we didn't have food, so we were working with food truck partners, so it didn't really make sense for us to take reservations on the very limited seats that we had inside our tap room without charging a fee for that, which that model was very successful for us over the last couple of years. But we're looking forward to transitioning into this F&B spend as an alternative, just because it'll be easier for folks to actually meet the minimum spend now that we have food. In year one, we did our first wedding, which was great. It also helped us reevaluate that maybe it wasn't the best fit for us. We'll go through a little bit more of what is required for these larger events as far as like capital investments and staff training. And those are some of the reasons why we've made the decision in the long end to pivot a little bit away from that. But year one, we're really learning, we're getting familiar with our space, familiar with our customers, getting to know our staff and our capabilities that we could put out for folks, and kind of evaluating what people are looking for from our space. Year two, increased about $25,000 in sales, moved away from weddings naturally, booked a lot more smaller events, and the biggest side of our events business that's been growing is the welcome parties, rehearsal dinners, and all of the wedding related events. So that's kind of the area that we're most focused on in year three. So we're just about to turn 3 in June, and so far we've secured $36,000 in the first 3 months. That's some events that haven't happened yet, some events that have. And I would say that this is a pretty typical trajectory for us to increase profit from year two. We usually will book more events as summer and fall come closer to us. And we have a couple things in the works for bigger events. So I think it's always nice, at least for us, to remember in our space that just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't later in the year. I think people are a lot more last minute than you think they are, even with these big events. So I think it's like never a bad time to start getting into this. And even though we're 3 months into the year, I think there's still time for you guys to launch your event business or focus more on it as a source of revenue. But with year three, we just launched our catering menu too. So next Saturday, we have our first private event that we're doing catering for, which is very exciting in that we're really looking forward to increasing our profit significantly. Like I mentioned in the past, we were working with food truck partners, which has worked really well. There's positives and negatives to those relationships. Some people have the space to do in-house catering. I think with that comes a lot of responsibilities too that we'll get into a little bit more on. Even if you do have the space and you do have the staff, catering, whole different ball game, maybe that your team isn't ready for. What works for your space and your team? So these are some of the things that we focus on. I think every space is different, and I hope that you'll all be able to evaluate the bigger picture in this, and like thinking about what your space looks like. Do you have these other rooms that you can rent out? What are your customers looking for? So more wedding specific. Like I said, we tried it out, kind of have decided not the right fit for us. So we have about 30 acres of property, about 5 of those are developed out, and which makes it really great to have the space to do all these big events, but we don't have things like rental chairs or tables or linens or plates. We have lots of glassware because we were covered in that area. And so these are all the things that folks are going to start asking you about. We have 30 picnic tables, so we have done these events with picnic tables. We offer the opportunity for folks to work with third-party rental companies that we've worked with in the past. We can help liaison with that. So I think that's always a great way to, like, maybe you don't have all these things, but you have folks that you're willing to work with that can help bring in those things for your private events. And I think it's helpful to understand what the associated costs with those additional rentals would be, so that when you're meeting with that couple to talk about having a bigger event like a wedding or a huge anniversary party or retirement party, you're laying out all the options with them so that they have an idea. Okay, so they're going to spend this much with you on your bar, and here's your rental fee, here's your staffing fee, and your gratuity and your tax. And then, being transparent, okay, on top of that, if you want to bring in your tables and your linens, maybe you don't have the quote for them, but you can connect them with your contact at the rental place who will be able to get back to them, who knows your space and can kind of get that info over to them. Which it kind of just depends on your customer, whether or not they can fit that into their budget. In our case, we do have the option to do kind of like the most basic setup, which is, like I said, we have picnic tables, we have tables inside our tap room, and then we cover everything for the bar. The thing that we have moved most towards is the wedding weekend events, which is the welcome parties, the rehearsal dinners, bachelorette parties, farewell brunches, wedding receptions. They just require a lot less as far as setup. I think a lot of folks, we're located in the Hudson Valley, very close to New York City, and The city folks love to come and have their little upstate retreat with us, and that's been a huge aspect of our business. I would say that's like the largest part of our customer base who's booking some of these larger events with us, and so the more casual welcome party rehearsal dinner has been really successful. It means that we don't have to bring in all of these extra things, and as we're building out our catering menu, we will be bringing in things like plates and other things that will make that possible, but we're still focused on a really casual version of that. And I think that there's just an opportunity to kind of evaluate your space and what works for your space, and then turn that around to like really sell the options that you have, because it'll definitely be the right fit for somebody and what they're looking for. The other thing that we do a lot of is just full buyouts. In the winter time, it's just a tap room. In the summertime, we do full property buyouts with the price much higher for that, since a lot of the times folks want to come on a Saturday or Sunday. So the other part of this is just evaluating how many days a year does it make sense for your brewery to be closed. Our business is super based on tourism, especially in the summer and the fall. And so we get a huge influx of new customers, first-time visitors, people who saw us on social media. And we made the choice when we launched our event business to only ever be closed on one Saturday and one Sunday a month. That way that it doesn't affect people's ability to come and visit us. We try to limit any buyouts on holiday weekends, especially since that's like the number one time folks are coming up. So I think it's just evaluating what your town does, what are the big holidays, when are people really expecting to be at your tap room, and then attaching that dollar amount. Because if someone came in and they said, I'll pay you $100,000 to close your tap room on your busiest day of the year, maybe that price tag is worth it for you. So evaluating, your busiest day, how much money you're making, and then the factors that aren't maybe on your spreadsheet at the end of those days, which is like who's missing out on those days when they normally would be coming to visit you for the first time. So I think that's another like maybe not visible aspect of evaluating how big you want to go with your private events. And then the other aspect of this is, how much should you charge for full buyouts? How much can you make in those days? Maybe it's not the biggest day of the year, but having a good understanding of what those projections look like, being able to evaluate not just the straight up cost of the food or the drinks, understanding that it is going to be more work for your staff. We pay all of our front of house staff a higher wage for events like this. We just onboarded our back of house staff, and so we'll be evaluating a pay structure for them once they start helping support these events. But I ran private events at a boutique hotel for a while and have a good understanding that it's just a lot more physical work. You're moving tables, you're, in this case, presenting a higher level of service. So our folks get extra training. They put on their white button-up shirts. We do 20% flat gratuity on all of our F&B packages, which I highly recommend on anybody doing any sort of private rental events. And the other aspect of that is going and making sure that you have a contract, which we'll go over that a little bit later. But maybe you guys are already doing some events, maybe you're looking to jump more into it. I think the thing that is important to evaluate is this like aspect of your staff and like what are their capabilities? Do you have to invest more into training them? Do you need to get more uniforms? How can you give the guests the best experience? Then there's the partial rentals and private spaces. Like I mentioned, we don't have any private spaces. We just have our one tap room and then our outdoor spaces. So all of our non-full buyouts are semi-private, so we'll reserve half the space. We put signs up, we help navigate the space and keep people out of their space. Maybe you have a private room, and that's a great place to start. Super easy, there's less limitations on when you can book them. Like we do live music sometimes, or we have a watercolor painting class, and so maybe that's not the best time to have like a reunion party for half the tap room and the other half the tap room's doing watercoloring. So kind of balancing the spaces that you have in your brewery and figuring out, how they can work with the other events that you have going on. Or maybe it's trivia night, so no private rentals on trivia nights. And then taking reservations. So like I said, that's not a system that we had set up in place just because our indoor space is quite limited, and we didn't want to take away spaces from folks coming in without a fee, which, like I mentioned, has been successful for us. So just taking into consideration all of these other factors that are helping you make choices about what works best for your space and your team. What are the barriers? So these are some of the barriers that I've seen us face over the last 3 years. I've touched on a little bit about them so far, which is, do you have someone on your team who's qualified and has the time? If you're gonna go whole hog on the events business, it's a full-time job. It requires a lot of thought and navigating and collaboration with your kitchen team or your front of house team or the other folks that are helping run your business, making sure that all of these things are aligning. Like I said, if you have trivia night, you know that that's a blackout day, can't do a buyout on that night, and making sure that you are bringing in someone who knows how to have the conversations, who knows how to ask about substitutions, or I'm non-alcoholic and 15 of my guests are NA, so we do a $10 unlimited non-alcoholic package. Understanding your space. Oh, I want to put my dance floor in your woods, which is a question that someone actually has asked us. And I said no. So you just have to have someone who's prepared to, you're put on the spot with a customer, it's their dream day, a lot of times if you're going with these bigger events, and understanding really intimately what you can and can't do. I mean, I think part of, we're in the hospitality business, and so there are definitely things that I would have never thought of that people have asked us to do that we could definitely do. It's like, I haven't thought about that in our space, but I think we could definitely do that. No, we haven't tented our patio before, but someone can figure that out. And no, we cannot put your dance floor in the woods. So understanding your limitations, putting someone in that position who's confident to be able to handle on-the-spot questions that maybe are a little crazy. Does it make sense to do buyouts and be close to the public? How many days are you willing to give up? Money, how will you compensate your staff for different jobs than what you hired for? Do you have money to do staff training? Does your team have the experience in higher level events? Will you buy more equipment, special uniforms, tools, or even invest in alcohol to have a bigger bar? How much do you need to charge, not only to cover your expenses, but also to make money for your business and incentivize your team to want to work these events? Are you prepared to make larger capital investments, and are you prepared for more wear and tear in your space? In our case, we decided to purchase a 70-foot tent that goes up behind our tap room. We end up utilizing it for the entire year, and then also it's a part of our private rentals. If you do full property buyout, it is included in that price. We don't have any shade cover in our outdoor space, and so it ended up being really important for us in the summer, for rain and the sun, especially with how hot some of these summers have been. And that we include in those full property buyouts, but that was a huge capital investment. We pay to have it clean, we pay to have it stored and taken down in the winter time. And it's part of a larger expense that you pay if you're gonna do a full property buyout with us. But it also provides that peace of mind for folks who are planning their big day with us or their welcome party. And they don't have to take that out as an extra cost, which a lot of the times these folks are putting in a reservation with a tent company to keep that as a backup option in the case of inclement weather. So it's been really great. Not only it was a great choice for us just for general business, like I said, to help with the rain and the heat, but then it has been really great for these private parties too who are looking to add that to their event packages. But that's just one example of like a large capital expense that we made the decision to because we thought that it would elevate the offerings that we give, and it has been utilized very much so since we brought it in. Wear and tear on the property is a big one, especially we're a new build, we're only 3 years old. And, if you're bringing in 150 people at one time, it's just going to be a lot more on your space. You're replacing your furniture more, you're doing more cleanup outside or having to paint more. So it's all of these things that if you're bringing in more larger groups of frequent business, that you'll just have to consider the long term of the wear and tear, what kind of things you need to replace. You need to get more glassware because you're going through it a little bit more because they're breaking it on the dance floor. Just these little things that add up when you're making the choice to invest in these types of events. The who is your customer, and what kind of events do they want to have in your space, and can you offer them what they want? not everybody has the right space for a wedding. Like I said, we thought we did and we don't. And so we're moving away from that, and maybe you have the perfect venue for a wedding, but then you're making all these choices about the things that you need in order to successfully run those types of events. Maybe you have a huge community of young families. They want to have their kids' birthday parties. Is that something? Are you family friendly? Do you want to have kids' birthday parties in your tap room? I know that we don't allow children's birthday parties just because we have in the past, and it's just gotten a little too wild for us. So just making these choices I think it all kind of ties back into the overarching theme of this weekend, which is just getting a better understanding of who our customers are and what we can offer them, and how we can meet their needs from a place of familiarity of our own business. So like knowing what we have and what we're capable of offering, seeing where we can expand into that is still aligning with who our customers are, what we have to offer, and what our staff is capable of, and what kind of investments that you need to make in order to be successful in this area. The other thing is that I'm sure there are folks who also have experienced issues with noise ordinance and transportation. We're in the middle of nowhere in the Hudson Valley, and in our tap room in general, we have pretty strict rules about overconsumption and educate our staff on monitoring situations like that, because we are very aware that there are no taxis and there are no Ubers. So if you're driving in there and you're gonna have a drink, you're driving yourself out of there, and that definitely applies for parties too. So we don't require it, but we highly encourage folks to always go with a party bus for those types of situations. We have recommendations that we'll make for folks. We also have limitations on our parking area, so if you're having a 250 person party, making sure that you can actually accommodate those mini cars in your lot. And then the noise ordinance. We have 10 p.m. noise ordinance, and I think the biggest barrier with that is just being able to navigate conversations with customers who are interested in having events with you, and being strategic about what kind of bands you're going to allow them to have, where you're going to set up their band, if it's going to be outside. We're located right kind of in the bottom of this little hill, and the sound travels significantly. We do get people complaining occasionally, not on all of our events, but the other aspect of that is being really familiar with what you are legally allowed to do, educating that manager who's on that night, who's heading up that party, so they know that if the cops get called, how to navigate those types of conversations, so that they know, like, these are what I'm licensed to do, I'm within my rights, we're located in the space that we're licensed to have live music, here's how long the party goes, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, which has happened to us a couple of times. And usually, if you know what you're talking about, the police have to come because they were called on, so they know. They visited us a couple of times. So typically navigating that, I know there are folks who've dealt with like much more harsh requirements on noise ordinance, and I think there are a lot of smaller towns that are kind of trying to put a damper on some of the live music, and so trying to navigate that maybe with the Brewers Association or your local legislators to try to help combat if you're getting more pushback, even though you are licensed to have spaces like that. So but the other side of that, like I mentioned with the customer, is just like being aware of like, okay, here's our cutoff, it's in our contract, so we say like bar closes at 10 p.m., not at 10:01. Band stops at 10 p.m. All the guests have to be off by 10:30. And all of our packages are based on a 3-hour time frame. So we let them know, like, maybe it's best if we shift it up to 5 p.m. or 5:30 instead of wanting to do your later party. And the benefit of doing these welcome parties and rehearsal dinners, it's a very easy sell. Like, oh, you don't want to be out all night before your big day tomorrow. Let's shift it to 5 p.m. Which has kind of helped put a barrier between us maybe having to deal with the cops coming, and nobody wants that at their party that they just paid a bunch of money for. So that's how we've dealt with noise ordinance in the past, and being in a rural town. Farm brewery license. Show of hands, how many folks are farm breweries here? Awesome. Cool, we're farm brewery too. And I have found that with these larger events that are bigger, more important life events for customers, they are expecting a full bar. So educate, market, and be proud of our farm brewery license. This is a screenshot of our bar package that includes this little blurb about the farm brewery license that I wrote. We operate with a New York State farm brewery license, requiring all alcoholic products served to be produced and manufactured in New York State. New York State is proud to produce a wide variety of craft spirits, beer, wine, and cider. We see the farm brewery license as a way for us to find creativity and highlight the extensive craft beverage selections that New York has to offer. Our team is excited to work with you to craft the perfect bar menu that is seasonally focused and full of all the best products grown and crafted in New York. I don't see the farm brewery license as a barrier. I see it as a huge positive and a way for us to be proud of New York State. We have all of these amazing things. Maybe you don't have tequila or rum, but we've been able to do just about as much as you would call full bar service for folks. And I think that there are a couple of different ways to explore that as an option. We recently expanded our bar service into a full service cocktail menu. So we're not doing like, you can't just order anything at the bar, but we have a designated cocktail menu. Recently hired a lead bartender who's heading up our bar program. We're making full cocktails. In the past, we were doing ready to drink cans and pre-batch, which there are a lot of really great New York State products that we were highlighting on our menu. At the time when we first opened, it was too much space to take up behind our very tiny bar. Our team wasn't ready to do full cocktail service. And I didn't want us to get backed up at the bar trying to make, a martini for 15 people at one time. And so part of the way we sold our packages originally was you could do these really basic mixed drinks with our local like Hudson Valley Distillers gin, vodka, whiskey, and then they picked out these two a little bit more ingredient pre-batch drinks that were like their signature drinks for the evening. And that was the model that we followed up until recently. Now, as I mentioned, we're adding in more of these handcrafted cocktails, but I think that there are a lot of options that you can utilize to fit your space. You don't have to jump all into doing a full cocktail bar where everybody can choose their own adventure. So I think it's kind of evaluating, like I said, these expenses that come with, okay, now you have to buy a case of whiskey, a case of vodka, gin, now you're getting in vermouth and getting in all of these other things, which are a huge upfront investment, along with we didn't hire bartenders, we hired folks who had great customer service, were really interested in learning and thought that we could teach them to pour beer. So that wasn't the thing that we were originally hiring for when we were filling these roles in our tap room. And so that was another aspect of why we weren't ready for full service bar. And we've since then reevaluated and spent time training our staff so that we could offer this higher level of service. But I think that there are a lot of outlets besides just what comes to mind first, which is just building out this massive bar that people expect to have at a wedding. We have had really good luck with all of these options of these ready to drink, pre-batched, and cans, and you should definitely look at your neighbors and ask your distributors who they have from New York State products. There's more stuff coming on the market all the time. We have really great vermouth now. We have coffee liqueur. We have amazing Amaros and all of the things that you would need if you want to go whole hog on this big cocktail bar, which is what we're dipping our toe into right now, along with amazing cider, amazing wine, and like I said, just folks jumping on the market. Each day there's more people joining, and I think that's a way for us to take advantage of increasing sales. Half of our menu is other stuff. We have full front side of our menu is all of our draft lines, and then the back side is 25% non-alcoholic, and then 25% of wine, cider, and cocktails, and we sell everything in every category. And so I think not only are people expecting that with private events, that they aren't just looking to have beer for their party with you, they want all of these other things. And I think that it is silly not to take advantage of all these other amazing makers in our area. And if people are asking for it, why not give them what they want and make the money on it? And like I said, there's so many ways to just dip your toe in. Like for a while, we just had one whiskey, one gin, one vodka. You could mix it with the seltzer. And that alone was enough for some folks. And so it's like also evaluating what your guests are looking for. What are they asking for at the bar? Do you talk to your taproom associates or your bartenders? Like, what are you getting asked for all the time? Because most likely that's going to translate to what people want at these parties too. And so it's listening to what people want and meeting their needs in a way that feels reasonable to your business. The other aspect of this is selling yourself. So if you're going to make this choice to go with doing rentals, you should create a rental packet, have a price sheet, come up with marketing materials that you can share with customers, whether that be a postcard that lives on the bar or a QR code to scan that's on your bulletin board or on your table tent in the tap room. Do you have an intake form on your website? And on top of that, educating your staff on what your offerings are at the most basic level. So if someone comes in and say, "Can I have my birthday party here?" Your bartender doesn't go, "I don't know, maybe." They know, yes, and here's the card for this person, and they'll get back to you. And maybe they have worked one of these events, so they can tell you a little bit more about it. But just that basic level of educating and empowering your staff to be prepared to answer the most basic level of questions, not sharing info about financials or promising them the moon when we definitely cannot do that. But it's really important to help kind of sell your space because they're the ones who are interacting with people on the floor every day in your space. Look at free local advertising resources. That's been a huge way for us to promote our offerings. And I think a lot of people think of marketing, you go straight to all these big paid advertising, putting in a billboard or going with paid marketing on Instagram or Facebook. We have a really awesome local newspaper. We work with our Chamber of Commerce and Dutchess County Tourism. All of these local groups offer free advertising for us, and so it's time consuming. You need to network and make friends with those folks. But there's a lot of can you post a poster at the local coffee shop, or who else do you know in your community that has a space where they're advertising? Or another thing that we did to kind of show off the types of rental that we were doing, we did an Instagram giveaway for a private party that you came and we took photos so that we had this option to show off how great our space was, and it was free for this person who entered a raffle, and they brought 15 of their friends and they got our lowest beverage package, and it was a great way to kind of get the word out and get people excited about, I can have a party there and I can do all of these things. So not only do you need to think about what works for your space and how to get there, then you need to tell people about it. That's the other half of the battle. The other main thing that I want to make sure I'm encouraging all of you guys is to have a contract. I'm always surprised to hear when folks don't have contracts I've worked with catering companies who've worked with us at the brewery, and they're like, at the last minute they called me yesterday and they're like, we're 15 more people and I don't want to pay more, and they just gave it to them. And I was like, that's so crazy. It didn't state in your contract that they had to let you know 14 days ahead. And so make sure that you are evaluating your capabilities and then setting yourself up for success. So it sounds crazy, we have a 10-page contract. And for our biggest events, you're having, a $20,000 event with us, there are a lot of really awesome free templates online. So maybe you're just having a birthday party. They're just renting out one little, table for 15 people. I still send a rental agreement for those things. It's one page. It has a signature spot for me to sign, spot for them to sign. Says, you're coming from 2 to 5. You're 15 people. You reserved this space. It costs this much. You already paid, or here, you have a 20% deposit that's due now. It might seem like a lot of extra work or a little crazy to send people a 10-page contract, but in the end, you're going to cover your butt. You're going to lay out what you're capable of. So for us, you have 14 days before your event to change your guest count with us. We'll adjust the pricing of your contract. You can cancel with us up to 60 or 30 days. If you have, even with a $20,000 event, we'll give you full refund. So outlining these things of like, okay, in the event of like power outage, you just paid us a ton of money, you're planning to have your big birthday party here, what is your backup plan and how have you communicated that? Have you thought about these things that could happen that are out of your control, and how are you going to navigate that with when you have a 10,000 deposit sitting in your bank already and then the power is out and you can't do anything about it? And so being sure to outline, even on the smallest scale, like you spent all this time, you reserved this table, you know, it's a busy Saturday and no one's out there all day because you reserved this table, and you brought in an extra person because it's going to be 20 people, and you did all these extra steps to make sure, and then they come and they're supposed to pay the day of and they don't come. And you're like, why did I bring on another person for this whole day and reserve this space all day, and argued with people who wanted to sit in that space and don't understand that it's reserved. And now you are out of the money too. So making sure that you're putting in these safety nets for yourself, and also just outlining like what your rules are. Do you have a code of conduct? Are they allowed to smoke on property? Making sure that they know you cannot bring in outside alcohol. Your DJ has to leave by this time. On top of that, when we work with third-party vendors for these events, we also have a vendor intake form. We require a certificate of insurance. All of these things sound like so much extra work, but at the end of the day, you're protecting yourself, you're protecting your staff, you're securing the money for all of the hard work that you're investing into doing events like this. And maybe you consult a lawyer. Like I said, there are really great free templates online. Then you could use ChatGPT to maybe help you find something. Then setting up a deposit schedule. So that goes with evaluating, you know, how much you need to be charging for these events, not only covering those expenses, but being profitable, and considering those outside factors of losing new business on a busy Saturday in the summertime because you're going to do a private party like this. We do 20% due at signing, 30% 60 days out, and then your final 50% is due within 48 hours of the conclusion of your event. That's a great way to do it. It's pretty standard in the events world. It also allows for like any additions to be added on to that final bill. They wanted to add on more drinks or more food or whatever it is that you have the capability of offering in that day, or they ripped your couch in half and you need to charge them for it. It just gives that ability to cover your costs in that end too. We accept all forms of payment. You'll know what works best for you and how you guys set up payment. You can do it. Most of your POSs allow it. Like I do all of our invoicing through Square. If you have that as your POS, QuickBooks is another great option. I feel like most people have similar POSs to that. There's also third-party event rental programs that you can use that include all things like that. Organizing your data. So using a CRM or building your own tracking system in Google Sheets or Airtable. We use Airtable. I don't know how many folks are familiar with that. We previously had Ohanify that we were using to do all of our business operation data organization. We've moved to Airtable. We started out with the free version, which it's really great. You can really choose your own adventure and kind of build out what the needs are for your business and the type of events that you're hosting. Keeping track of invoicing in your POS or on QuickBooks or whatever other system that you would use to invoice. Having a calendar available for your team. We, at the beginning of the year, release our all hands on deck calendar, which includes any of these buyouts that are going to require the staff to be available for that. And then just in general, like some way to communicate to your team, like, oh, Saturday we have, 50-person birthday party coming in, so that they can prepare for that. Or they know when someone comes in on Friday night, like, oh, what do you guys have going on tomorrow? It's like, oh, sorry, we're actually closed tomorrow, but we'll be back open on Sunday. Our regular hours, come in for that. So just making sure that your team is empowered with the information they need to know to continue to keep the tap room running, even when you are going to be closed for these types of events. It's usually much better received. Like, we do split events, so next Saturday we'll be open for the first half of the day and we'll be closing at 4 for a private event. And so we'll put signs on the door before we open. We'll educate the team. Hey, don't forget to let people know who are coming in at 2:30, 3 o'clock that we're closing at 4. Hey, so glad you're joining us. Happy to get you a round of drinks. Just so you know, we'll be closing at 4 p.m. today, which is much better received than it's 4 o'clock and you're like, hey man, we gotta go. And they're like, what do you mean? I just got here. So that's the other half of navigating this and like educating the customer. It's much easier and better received at the beginning than like, so there's a reservation on the patio and your bartender forgot to put the signs out and now you're kicking people off the patio and they don't understand why. So, but instead, if they went out there, they went to go take a seat and they saw, oh, it's reserved for a party, we'll go find somewhere else. So making sure we're keeping those situations a little bit more clean and like educating the other customers who are in those spaces and kind of preventing like, the kerfuffles that can happen when we're not making sure that everyone is aware of, that we're reserving these spaces or we're closing early. Let's see here. Evaluate your costs and your profit margins. Make sure you update your hours, notify the public. We also post like on Instagram, Facebook. We'll change our Google hours so that when someone looks us up, they know that we're going to be closed for those days. Maybe you send out an email blast, whatever works best to get in touch with your community base that is expecting you to be open your normal hours. Get guest feedback. Send out a survey, talk to your staff, find out what did and didn't work for your events, and be willing to pivot and make changes. So maybe you are really gung-ho and you think you're going to be like the best place to have retirement parties, and you're like, this is going to be so great, we're going to break into this market, no one else is doing this, and it's not the right thing for your space. Your team hates it, the customers, they don't want to do it. So just making sure that you're listening to the staff. They're the ones who are interacting with these folks. You're hearing what people are asking for, what is the most common request at the bar, and you are doing these evaluations after these events. Okay, what was successful? Okay, you needed more information about this, or we need to work on making cocktails so that we give more confidence, or oh no, we don't have enough jiggers for the bar or shaker, so let's see if we can fit that into our budget this month. And making these little decisions that if you're going to commit, that you're making sure you're evaluating and growing this part of your business, which does take time and money and training and sacrifices, but I think can be a really great outcome. But overall, I think I just am hoping folks will see what worked for us and maybe be able to look at their own spaces and evaluate, what will be great in my space, what my staff can do, how am I going to get the word out. And maybe events isn't the right thing for you, but maybe you are going to be, the new cornhole place, or you're going to do volleyball or some other thing that you can, I think, take this same evaluation method of investigating, what are the costs, what kind of time, who do I need to hire, and what my space can handle and what folks in my community are looking for, and then apply it to whatever thing you think will be successful at your space. But I wanted to open it up for questions. Yes.
When you're charging for an event for somebody to rent the space, it sounded like you charge per the amount of people.
It's by the space. So we have I know the limitations on each space. Okay. I can also, if we had time, I wanted to open up our rental packet, which I can open up for you guys to take a look at.
I was going to ask if that's on your website.
It's not on our website. We just do it, I like to gauge people's interest before I hit them with the price. That way it gives the opportunity to navigate what they're looking for and how much they're willing to spend, and then I can kind of direct them towards what I think is the best fit, because it might be I want to have my party there, and I send them the package, they're whoa, $10,000, and no, you're just 10 people, you could not even make a reservation. So I think that that's a good barrier to have. It works differently for every person, but this is our most current rental packet that I send out to folks, which just tells a little bit about our property. I made this on Canva, which I think is a really, really easy graphic design tool for folks who aren't familiar with it. I highly recommend. You can even use the free version of it, and I think it's really nice to have something put together. Maybe you just have a one-page sheet, and you can rent our party room in the back, or you can rent the bar, and give a little picture or just a description of what your offerings are. So we have our little areas that you can rent out, which these prices are F&B minimums for the space. And we have weekday prices, weekend prices, and then we have on-season pricing for our full property buyouts. And we don't require, it's pretty much up to 20 people that I'll be pretty flexible about. And you could show up with, we have had people come with like 75 people with no reservation, or they get off the party bus and, or they don't want to pay, which is fine. I just make sure that I'm clear about what the expectation is and what we'll be able to offer. So if you're going to roll up with 50 people on your party bus and you don't want to pay, sure, no problem. I've got a spot for your bus to pull in. But when you show up on Saturday in the summer with 50 people, it's just going to take us a couple minutes to get your drinks, and it might be a little hard to find seats. So as long as that's fine with you, you definitely don't have to rent a space with us. And some people are like, cool, fine, whatever, that's fine. We'll bring our blankets and we'll sit on the grass, and we don't mind waiting a couple minutes. Or they're like, oh shoot, maybe we do want to make sure that we have a reserved space so that we can give our friends a really great experience. So in our case, I try to be really flexible. I don't think people need to pay in order to enjoy the space, but if they want to, it's available. And I do get people who want to pay $75 to just sit in the couch and make sure that couch is going to be there for them when they get there, and they love it, and that's great. We do patio rentals. I also am very selective about how many rentals I'll do at one time. So I won't do a patio and a half tap room rental at the same time. I don't let people combine spaces, because if you're already going to exceed the 45 person maximum inside the half tap room buyout, at that point you're dominating the entire space. It needs to just be a private party. So it's just like navigating where the cutoff is, so that if you're going to be open to the public, they don't feel like they're coming into someone else's party and there's no space for them. So it's a fine line. Like I said, we don't have private spaces, so making sure that we are kind of taming the party into one section. In the summertime, it's much easier. Most folks go outside. In the wintertime, it becomes a little bit more challenging because we just have that one space.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Like just your spaces that you're renting here?
Yes.
Do you provide table service, or does
We're still bar service. For food, it would be table service. It wouldn't be concession style, but we're still bar service. And we, at the end of this, I'll show you, we have drink token packages. If you're open bar and we're open to the public, we have wristbands. So there are ways to indicate, and we do encourage folks to stay. Like if you're going to be over 25 people, I really encourage folks to do a beverage package with us, or at least give us a tab and we discuss a minimum spend, so that it's not 30 or 40 people coming up trying to open tabs at the same time, because that usually doesn't work out very well. And our bar is very small. We can only fit about 4 people behind it. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah.
What I was wondering is if you ever set up a separate bar for.
We have a tap trailer with 4 draft lines on it that we'll put in our tent. We also use it for like Oktoberfest. And so we'll do that with a small standing bar with a limited offering of like either here's a couple of our NA beverages, and then we can just use our back bar. Like we won't leave them with just that, but it will help kind of buffer that. So that might look different for you. Maybe you're just setting up a pop-up table with all of your cocktails in one spot, or you have a bunch of canned offerings, and like they can at least go get canned cider and canned cocktails over there. And so like for our large buyouts, we do that too. And we're doing like a big graduation party Memorial Day weekend, and we'll have that bar set up for them like under our tent. And then just utilizing that as an option like on your busiest weekends too, just to kind of help with the pinch points. Do you have a question too?
Yeah, so we also do semi-privates.
Mm-hmm.
We have issues with like, I don't want to say expectation, but it's kind of like, what do you charge for a smaller space that really is more of a table reservation? I think people have a hard time like justifying the price of it, and then they do just like want to show up, but like we can't reserve that space, and
Yeah.
and then it's like, well, we have to guarantee that they're actually going to spend money. What have you guys kind of felt works for you?
Yeah, we've definitely dealt with the same problems, and I think it kind of depends on the person. So like I said, we don't require it, but I just make sure I'm really clear on the expectations of what we're able to offer if you're not going to pay for that price, and you're coming on Saturday and it's the summer, like just so you know, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to find a table that's going to accommodate 15 people. You don't have to do it. sometimes it's a great day and there's no one in here and you'll be able to find a space no problem, but I highly recommend that you move forward with reserving this space so that we can guarantee the best experience for your group, and that our team can offer you our best experience. And I talk about that a lot when I'm speaking with folks. It's like kind of making sure you're like selling it to them a little bit in a way where you're like, I want to make sure I'm giving you the best experience you've ever had. We have all of these awesome things that we want to offer you. And in order to do that and for it to feel really good for you, this is the thing that I think will be best for you. I've created this experience that I know is going to be awesome for you. And if you move forward with this reservation, I can guarantee that it's going to happen that way. If you don't, that's totally cool, but here's how it's going to affect you. It's going to take longer at the bar. You might not find a seat for your group. There might be a really big line at the food truck and it could take an hour to get food. So just like kind of being really transparent about how it's going to affect their experience, I have found is a way to kind of get that info across. And it doesn't work for every people, and sometimes they come in and they're still pissed off, and that's just the business that we live in and we deal with. And we get other things too where it's like, yeah, we're 25 people and then they're like 60 people, and that's another problem. So I think we'll always, in this type of business where you're doing private events, you're always kind of balancing what you're capable of offering and then the guest's expectation, and trying to like really weed out what that expectation is in advance, because it's going to benefit you. Like, they're being a little bit weird about how many people are coming. I think that they're going to probably bring more people. Or like trying to have like, if you're going to book with us, I want to have at least one phone call with you. I won't just communicate over email. I want to talk to you on the phone, and I want to like gauge who you are, get a little more vibe check, find out a couple more questions. I think it's a really great opportunity to like suss out these people. It's really easy to hide behind email, and even if it's like, we're coming with 10 people and it's going to be really cute, we just want to get a couple french fries. And we had that the other weekend. They showed up with 50 people and 30 kids. It was bananas, and they didn't get the best experience. And then, at the end of the day, it's all your fault, right? So their friends don't know that they told you they're coming with 10 people. They think that, everything's all set up and there's going to be food for 50 people and there's going to be seats and a place for them to put their coats and an extra bartender on. And they come and their friend's like, I'm having my birthday party at Lasting Joy. It's going to be so great. And they've told us it's going to be 25 people, and then they just get a shitty experience. And it sucks. I mean, and that still happens. And so then you're like, who do you have on the floor in that moment who's navigating those experiences? Like, how can I get in there? Who can I call in as backup? Like, what am I doing to kind of mitigate those, like, negative experiences? Because they're going to happen. You're never going to be fully in control. People are still going to do what they want. Yes?
Do you ever just rent out that 70-foot tent that you put up?
Yes.
Like, so that do you find that helps with that like physical separation?
It does, more so than the patio, because the patio like has a door to exit out. I mean, we have 4 doors on the entire, we're like a big rectangle space. It definitely helps separate it out, I think.
What do you think is a reasonable price to rent that out?
Let's see here.
That same thing. We have a huge pavilion.
So this is the picture of what it looks like when it's up. There's a door that leads right out to it. And our full tent pricing, this would be if we were open to the public, is $3,150 and that's our F&B spend right now. So for 80 people, without going into all of our pricing for beverages and food, if you're bringing 80 people, you're going to go more than that. You're looking at like probably $10,000 is more realistic on your spend. And so it was different when we didn't have food, because it's really hard to meet those minimums on just beverage alone, but we did. I mean, I showed you what we made in the last 2 years. We were making those minimums. People do want to spend. There are people who have money to spend and they don't bat an eye at prices like this. I think that it's going to benefit us in the long run to have food. I think it translates better to people feeling like they're getting more for what they paid for. But that doesn't mean that you can't sell your space without food. We did it, and we just worked with third-party food vendors. And so when you're looking at how to price these, I mean, we've spent a lot of time evaluating how much it's going to cost for our staff and how much do we charge for drinks. with the expectation, if you're doing like these beverage packages, you're expecting people to order the most expensive drink and you're pricing off of that. And like I said, we offer a $10 per person unlimited NA package to kind of be, one, we want people to enjoy our space regardless of what they're interested in. And I think it also helps like ease the mind of these people. Like, well, I have a bunch of people who aren't going to drink and I don't want to pay that price. Well, oh, no worries. We have this option for them. And that kind of helps pad the price point with these. But making sure you're just like evaluating how you're going to price everything, that's the hardest part. And just be willing to like look at it each time. Okay, we charge this much for our last party. We need to charge more. We're paying our staff too much, or it was more expensive than we thought. We actually need to bring on another person. So I think especially once you're getting up and running, that you're like looking at the hard numbers every single event and seeing if you need to raise the price, and do raise the price. It shouldn't just cover your costs, should be making your business money.
Sorry, so with the tent, we also have a big tent.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, so that goes towards your spend, or is that in addition?
You have to meet that as a minimum. Mm-hmm.
Is that a permanent tent that you only take up in?
Yeah, it goes down in the winter time. Yeah, and we have walls too that you can add for private events, and it's an additional fee because we have to do the install on the walls. Any other questions? Yes. Oh yeah, whoever.
So we have like issues with people like wanting to extend their party. And for me, like I'm the manager, so I manage our staff.
Yeah.
It's hard, and I don't manage events necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
but I manage them once they come there.
Yeah.
My issue with extending a party is like staffing.
Yes.
How do you guys do you guys allow people to extend parties? What's your fee? And what do you do about like staffing for that?
Yeah, I think that the best way to look at it is evaluating what you're capable of doing. And if you're going to allow it as an option, that you already have the expectations set up with your staff. So and that set the time limit. Like I would never go more than like 30 minutes or an hour. What most businesses do is it gets really expensive really fast, because truly we don't want them to stay. I mean, like, make the money if you can, and especially if it's an open bar, which most of our packages are, they haven't paid for that extra hour. And so you're doing the math on how many people are there and then what it's going to cost your staff. And then I would go on the very high end. I mean, there are places that charge $100 for every 5 minutes. I mean, people go, and that's like big wedding venues or crazy places, but have it in your contract, know what your limitation is, and then make sure that your staff is ready for that. So you're like, okay, party goes from 5 to 8, I have you on until 10. They have the ability to extend an hour, set the expectation so your team isn't like, what the heck, I'm not staying another hour, and have it as a buffer and know how much you're going to charge, and make sure your customer knows before they've even stepped foot. Like, okay, great, I start charging you at the 5-minute mark, and make, like, okay, I see it's, 8:05, your party concluded at 8, are you wanting to stay at 8:15? I will start charging you this much, and that was mentioned in our contract. At 8:30, it's an additional. At 8:45, it's an additional. And the best way is like educating well in advance your staff, having that price point in mind, having the button in the POS so you click it and add it to their bill right then. And I think that's the best way to navigate it.
I have one last question.
Yes.
Yeah. So we started in New York City where we had 0 prices, and we throw whatever number on.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cheap. We're in Finger Lakes now, and it's a lot of prices. So we try to do things like especially with farm brewery, like our costs are higher and all that.
Yeah.
You guys, what you were talking about an earlier slide.
Yeah, about like the farm.
I wanted to steal it, I wasn't ready.
Yeah, let me find it for you. Just about like I have it specific to, it's this at the top of the bar package, because I use it to kind of help explain like where our limitations lie with what our offerings are. But I think a lot of customers don't know what the farm brewery license is, and I think you can use it to your advantage.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
When you were working with food trucks and not doing your own catering, how did you structure that? Was that food part of these minimum prices, or did they kind of run things separately?
Yeah.
Were you able to separate like the food truck being just for the private event versus other customers being able to go to the food truck?
Yeah, so before we opened up our catering packages, those prices were what people had to pay plus a beverage package. Now they're paying that meets our minimum on food and exceeds it. So we've removed that just like flat fee for no reason. So they were paying that rental fee for the space, for a beverage package, and then 20% gratuity on the beverage package, 8% sales tax. We were partnering with third-party vendors. We had a list of recommended food trucks that we'd worked with in the past. They would go all direct with them, whatever their pricing was. The food trucks were responsible for plateware, napkins, forks, all of that stuff. They have to know what the timing of the event is, and to be honest with you, it just wasn't the most successful version. Because when someone comes in there, they're going to their friend's wedding and the food truck is 45 minutes late on the pizza, they think it's lasting joy. They think that somehow I'm supposed to be making the pizza in the back and I forgot the paper plates and the pizza's up late, and they will never differentiate that. And so that was another big reason on why we wanted to move away from that. But I think if you have partnerships with folks who run food trucks who are super awesome. I think it's meeting with them and saying, hey, we're going to start offering private events. This is what it's going to look like for us. Is that something you're interested in? And then really narrowing down your offerings. Or if you're going to open it up to everybody, what types of conversations you're having with those vendors, and like putting in your contract, like, we have the ability to say no. And if your vendor doesn't come to my walkthrough, if they don't send me their health department permit and their COI, and we haven't talked on the phone at least one time, they're not coming. And letting your customer know that we have these things set up in place for the success of your event, and we have the ability to say no. So I think it's the same thing, just making sure that you're like thinking of all the things that could go wrong, thinking about how you want to communicate to third-party partners and your customer, and then what are you going to do if that person doesn't show up? Are you going to follow through? Are you going to say, oh, no food tonight? Or are you going to let them come and do a shitty job, which sometimes that's what happens.
Do you charge the food trucks to be there, or get
No.
a percentage of the sales?
Yeah, no charging.
Yeah, your question, when you're considering like a full buyout,
Mm-hmm.
what amount more than your normal custom are you looking to achieve in order to justify closing for your normal custom?
Yeah, so I think we start with looking at like what our general sales would be for a day like that, or just a time period based on last year, and then we look at all of the costs that are going to be associated with we pay $25 an hour for our staff to do private events, plus that 20% gratuity. So looking at the staffing costs that we know will be associated with that, and then taking that and then going a reasonable step up. So okay, last year I made this much. You could go as far as looking at your trajectory of growth for the entire year on what your tap room revenue is going up, and say I'm expecting to make 15% more. That's what I've shown for the last couple months, and then you're adding that on, and then you're adding on a little cherry on top, because it should be incentivizing for your business, and it's a lot more work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.